Hello, and so you've joined us in my horse's field. I'm standing here with Raina, so if you can hear any lip smacking noises and that, it's Raina. And I'm here with Lindy Wale, who is working on Raina at the moment as our
Masterton method certified practitioner.
It's a beautiful sunny day here in Shaftesbury for a change, and we're standing outside in a relatively dry field. And you only started working on Raina just a few minutes ago, and already she's releasing. Do you want to just explain a little bit about what you're doing?
Well, I find with some horses, particularly if I've seen them before, they just see me arrive at the gate and they start releasing. So they're releasing tension, which you can hear. This is what she's doing now. When I see a horse for the first time, I usually do this bladder meridian technique. And meridians are an idea from Chinese traditional medicine. So we all have them, they're channels. And with the horse, it runs from the eye along nearly the top of the neck, through the spine, and then down through the hind legs, past the hocks and down into the top of the feet. And we are trained to put our hands on very, very lightly, so we're not pressing. Literally the fingers just graze the top of the hair, but you run your fingers along this meridian and watch what the horse does. So you're looking for responses all the time. And I move quite slowly, and what I'm looking for is her to start blinking. And when she starts blinking, I know I've hit a spot on her body where she knows she's holding some tension. And tension doesn't always have to be physical, it can be emotional in horses. They hold a lot of tension in their bodies often. And so when I see her start to blink or look quite sleepy, which she is now, I just stay there, keep my hands there, and I just wait. And I'm just watching to see what she does. And eventually you might see more rapid blinking. Some horses wiggle their lips a bit more. Some start to look sleepy, and I just wait. And then at some point she will, there's something coming here, she will release the tension. And often you see that as licking and chewing. She does some snorting. Some horses show a bigger response. They can start yawning. And so I read an article once, somebody entitled this article about their own practice of Masterton method, and they entitled it, "I can make horses yawn by doing nothing."
That's
which
brilliant.
It does kind of make it sound a bit boring, and sometimes I think people must think if they're watching this, it's a bit like watching paint dry, because not a lot happens. But if you know your horse, often you see the responses, you see a different side to them, maybe a side to your horse you've never seen before.
Well, Raina has certainly been interesting, because this I don't know, is this the fourth time you've seen her?
Yeah.
But horses, whereas we as humans would associate yawning with tiredness or boredom, when a horse yawns, it's am I right in saying it's a release of something going on?
Yeah.
And Raina is, I would describe her as an introverted horse. She doesn't give much away usually. She's quite pursed lips and she's quite tense in general. But when she starts yawning, or as we just heard, when she starts snorting and releasing, she really goes for it.
She really does. And all horses are different. We've just done Bracken, your older pony, and he's what we call very stoic, and so even if he's got things going on for him in his body, he actually just keeps it all to himself and doesn't show it. And that comes from the evolution of horses, because they're prey animals. Through evolution, they've sort of developed this technique of not showing whether they feel ill or lame, because those are the horses and ponies that would be picked off by the predators. And so horses just keep all their bad things to themselves, and they do hide it. But this technique, they actually can't keep it in, and they just have to release it. It's so gentle, and it's very relaxing, but actually also it's very therapeutic. So if horses are holding tension, they can't use their bodies properly. If it's a sports horse, competition horse, it can affect their paces. And so if you come along and release all the tension, they actually then use their bodies properly, and their paces change. They're much freer, they work better, and they are then actually less prone to injury, which is the biggest
Exactly,
benefit.
yes. And anybody who's ever owned a horse will know what vet spills can be like.
Oh, horrendous. Yeah.
Prevention is much better than cure in our world, isn't it?
Oh, completely. Yes, absolutely. And so, you know, some horses, if they're only ever worked on one surface, that perhaps they're schooled in an outdoor school with an artificial surface, if you then ask them to go and compete on grass or unusual terrain that they've not trained on, their body's not conditioned for that, and this is where you sometimes find problems with ligaments in their legs, so suspensories, the tendons can get strained, and ligaments are very, very difficult to mend. They take forever, a year often, and the horse is out of action whilst they're recovering. So yeah, you want to prevent these things rather than be looking after them after they've happened.
Exactly. And horses have, you know, they're similar to us in that if I was to go for a 10-mile run, having not run for several weeks, it doesn't matter. It wouldn't do me any good. But if I had been training for several weeks on the road, and then I went and did a 10-mile run in the fields, I wouldn't be able to walk the next day. So horses, it is that real slow, gradual building up.
And actually that's a really good point, because in human fitness we're encouraged to warm up, and then when you've completed the activity, to cool down, and that helps the body's tissues and respiratory system get back to normal function. But lots of people don't do that with their horses, and they should. And particularly the older horses, they need a long, slow warm-up so their muscles are functioning properly. But actually it's more important when you have finished, I don't know, jumping or a bit of dressage training, or particularly any fast work, you want the body to return to normal slowly, and so a cool down is even more important than you ever realise. Yeah.
And of course, because they can't talk, we can't tell, which is why it's important to get to know your horse. And having you come out to see my horses really helps them, because they do speak to you.
Well, they absolutely do. And again, this is what we're trained to look for, the tiniest, the most subtle of responses, change in behaviour, is what we're looking for, because that tells us where the horse has a problem. And
well, Raina's been quite interesting, because she's actually been quite aggressive at times, hasn't she? Not towards you though, towards me and Bracken.
The other ponies. I think once or twice I have seen, particularly where the owners want to hold the horse whilst I'm working on it, the owner will stand at the front of the horse's head, and if the horse feels constricted, or there's a lot of tension there, or they're very sore, or they're quite painful, then I have a couple of times seen them actually bite their owner.
Yeah, we saw Raina bite me last month.
Yes, but it is quite rare. But the whole idea is that I can watch that behaviour kind of developing, hopefully, and prevent it. So for a horse that's carrying some potential injury, it could be the beginnings of an injury. If I work on them, you can see when they're getting really uncomfortable, and you actually go softer. You back off.
Yeah.
And in some physio work, that maybe doesn't happen. I don't know, but yeah, we're trained to go lighter and lighter, because we want the horse to stay in a very relaxed state.
Yes.
Because if they're getting more and more tense, they're not going to find it very easy to release the tension.
No,
they have to be relaxed. And some of the work we do, it releases lots of endorphins from the brain into the body, and these are like happy chemicals, and the horse does get very, very sleepy. And we do say not to ride them for a day afterwards, because the body can be processing the body work for actually up to 72 hours.
Oh gosh.
It's quite a long time.
That is a very
long time. But if you get straight back on your horse, the body hasn't had time to sort out new patterns of movement.
So you're just going back to old habits, which
Yeah.
is exactly why you were called out in the first place,
It's
to
true.
try and
Yeah.
help stop those habits.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. And so, as I say, it's very therapeutic, over and above the fact that it's very relaxing. I was called to see a horse in Dorchester who, when I got vet permission to go and see the horse, I was warned that it was dangerous and I needed to be really, really cautious. But we are very cautious because we're watching the body language. And actually that particular horse had an issue with a broken saddle. And
Oh,
so
no.
had been ridden for a little while, fortunately by quite a lightweight person. But the horse was a thoroughbred, it was very sensitive, and it had set up all these connotations with pain in the saddle. And so whenever a person went near her, she would try to bite or kick. But again, where we're trained to be very light and watch the behaviours, I worked on other parts of her body and she got used to the process.
So you
And,
worked on parts that weren't necessarily sore, that she didn't
Yeah.
associate with pain.
Yes.
So she was happy to let you near those bits.
Yeah.
And then that built her confidence so that you
Absolutely.
could go.
Yeah. And so they trust the process, they understand how it works within their own bodies, how nice it feels. And actually the second visit I worked on her back, she was happy for me to do that. I mean, some do warn you off a particular part, and by responding to that warning they trust you more.
Because
Rather
you had a
than-
conversation.
Yeah. And actually it only took a couple of visits with that particular horse, and absolutely right as rain afterwards.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Really happy girl.
Yeah, that's really good. Well, I haven't called you out because of any issues like that.
No.
It was just a sort of well-being, come and see my horses. But it has still been very interesting. I have three horses with very different personalities and different histories, and they've all got injuries of their own and as have I. Show me one person that doesn't. But
isn't it interesting how often the riders, owners, they'll spend money on their horses' physio, but
Yeah.
actually not on themselves.
Oh, I do as well.
That's good. That's really good, because you should be at
I
your
wouldn't be able
best
to get
as
out
well.
of bed if I didn't get help. But anyway, we're not talking about me. But it has been interesting because as we said, I think this is your fourth
Yeah.
visit, and Bracken, as you said, he doesn't give much away,
No.
but he's been very welcoming to you from day one, which he doesn't have to be, and he
Yeah.
can choose not to be.
Yeah.
Raina, I always think of her, she will put up with a lot.
Right.
She won't necessarily give. She will
tolerates.
she tolerates
Yeah.
it. She expects it to be done to her, and
Yeah.
so to see her reactions a couple of times has actually been really good, although it's been shocking. It's been really good because it tells me that she has actually been engaging at some level.
Yes.
And she's just starting to do the lick and she's just starting to do the lick and chew now, which is always, and she's really engaging today, and I don't fear her teeth.
No. And she stood here. We're not holding her. She could walk away at any point.
Yes.
But actually she's choosing to stay here and just explore how her body feels depending on where I've got my hand. So at the moment I'm working at the top of her tail. Lots of horses have tension in their sacrum and their poll, which is up behind their ears. But just working very gently on the sacrum, because everything is connected through the horse's body, particularly through the spinal cord, I can work on top of her tail, and it actually takes tension out behind her ears, which is amazing.
That is amazing. Yes.
Yeah, because some horses, if they're really tight behind their ears, on the poll, which is where the bridle sits, they're very wary. They get what's called head shy,
Yeah.
as you know, and really some don't want to be brushed there, or they don't want you. They're quite wary about what you're going to do to them if they're in a lot of discomfort. And so I don't always have to work on the painful bit. I can go somewhere else and achieve similar results, which is fantastic.
It is. It's absolutely brilliant.
Well, they absolutely love it. It's fantastic.
Well, my horse is definitely. Well, JD is still a work in progress, I would say. But Bracken and Raina have had therapists over the years, so they do understand what the process is. I don't believe JD has done until you came along, and he is absolutely desperate to be involved.
Yes.
But he hasn't quite got the hang of the. He needs to, in order to get the best out of it, he doesn't actually have to actively do anything, whereas the other two understand that they can just stand there and
just
let you
relax
do the work.
into it.
Yeah,
they do. They kind of melt into it. And some horses, the first time you turn up, they don't know what my intention is. They don't know if I'm a vet. Am I going to inject them?
Which is often their only interaction with somebody that isn't their owner.
Yeah. But it doesn't take very long. Once you've got the endorphins running in the system, they get a little bit relaxed, a little bit sleepy, and they definitely remember that. The second time you go, they absolutely remember how it works,
and that's what we're seeing with Raina today. She's just looks as though she's dozing in the sunshine. Every now and then the ears will go, the eyes will go, the lips will go, but yes, we're really enjoying our Friday afternoon in the sunshine. I don't know when this will be aired on Alfred, but we're coming to the end, hopefully, of all the storms.
Wow, we need to be,
and we're very lucky to be able to just stand here with loose horses. Bracken's in the background. He's finished his treatment and he's still hanging around. Raina's just standing here, and
what better way to spend a Friday afternoon?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much, Lindy.
That's a pleasure.